Monica smoothed her blazer, entering the opulent lobby of the five-star hotel that was her pride and joy. She had just arrived for an unexpected evaluation, keen to observe the way her team interacted with their visitors. As she neared the front desk, the receptionist offered only a fleeting glance, accompanied by a weary sigh. "Ma'am, this hotel isn't in your budget," he sneered. Monica raised an eyebrow. Her budget? Before she had a chance to reply, the manager approached, assessing her from head to toe. "We have a reputation to uphold," he remarked with a wave of his hand. Monica's lips curved into a sly smile. They were completely unaware of her true identity. Moments later, they would wish they had thought twice. Before we dive in, please like this video and let us know where you're tuning in from. Your support enables us to share more impactful narratives. Now let's begin. Monica paused, her gaze fixed on the two men before her, taking in every detail. The receptionist shifted his attention back to the screen, unmistakably signaling that she was not worth his time. The manager, a tall figure with meticulously styled hair and a luxurious watch, crossed his arms and awaited her departure. She could perceive it in his gaze. He had formed his opinion of her, had already concluded that she was out of place. She let out a long, measured breath. She had put in relentless effort, battled through countless obstacles to be brushed aside so effortlessly. "I would like to book a suite," she said, maintaining a steady tone. The receptionist hardly looked up. "Ma'am, we do not have any available rooms for you." He paused before the last word, his eyes briefly scanning her understated yet refined attire. "Maybe a hotel down the street would suit you better." Monica maintained her poise, though a fire raged within her. This wasn't the first instance of such treatment, yet it never ceased to hurt. "I understand," she replied. "Are you telling me there are no suites available?" The manager moved closer. "That is indeed the case, and we do have specific standards for our clientele here." Monica inclined her head slightly. "A specific standard?" "Indeed," he replied, offering a brief, controlled grin. "Maybe next time. Just give me a heads up." She chuckled softly, shaking her head a little. "And if I told you I could afford any room in this hotel?" The manager's expression turned steely. "Ma'am, I don't think we should spend any more time here." Monica's grip on her purse tightened. The audacity, the arrogance. It was nearly entertaining. Nearly there. She retrieved her phone and composed a brief message. Moments later, the hotel door swung open, revealing a sharply dressed man in a navy blue suit who entered with purpose. He exuded an aura that drew everyone in, and soon enough, all gazes were fixed upon him. The receptionist's expression shifted, her mouth parting in surprise. The manager adjusted his posture, as if he could feel an unsettling shift in the atmosphere. "Ms. Carter," the man said with a friendly smile, reaching out his hand. "Your arrival is a pleasant surprise." Monica beamed, gripping his hand with confidence. "I chose to catch everyone off guard." The manager's face went pale. The receptionist appeared to long for invisibility. The gentleman clad in the tailored suit pivoted in their direction. "Permit me to present myself. I am Daniel Wright, Regional Director of Carter Luxury Hotels." He looked between the two men. "And you are addressing the owner of this establishment." A thick silence enveloped the room. The manager's lips parted ever so slightly, yet silence lingered in the air. The receptionist appeared completely immobilized, his fingers suspended above the keyboard. Monica observed them intently, anticipating the moment when understanding would dawn upon them. She had witnessed this response previously. A swift transition from hubris to dread. The frantic search for justifications that would ultimately fall short. She had offered them an opportunity to make amends, and now they would face the consequences of their choices. The stillness in the hotel lobby lingered, stretching into an uncomfortable eternity. Monica observed the manager's throat constrict as he gulped nervously, his thoughts evidently scrambling for an escape from the chaos he had just unleashed. The receptionist, fingers poised above the keyboard, appeared as if he wished to sink into the very floor beneath him. Monica had witnessed this very response previously, the instant when pride crumbled into trepidation. "Miss Carter," the manager finally spoke, his voice trembling. I had no idea." She raised a hand, silencing him with ease. "No, you did not. That much is clear." The gravity of her statement caused the manager to flinch ever so slightly. She sensed the shift in power within the room, evident in the way the employees exchanged hushed whispers and cast anxious glances. Monica had dedicated years to climbing the ranks, overcoming every obstacle in her path. She understood the mindset of managers like this one, how they made snap judgments, how they wielded power over those they deemed inferior. And now that power had slipped away. Daniel advanced, his aura dominating the space. "I take it this is your way of accommodating esteemed visitors in our establishment?" His voice carried a serene quality, yet an undeniable sharpness lingered beneath the surface. The manager's body language shifted, revealing a noticeable tension. "No, sir, of course not. This was just a misunderstanding." Monica raised an eyebrow. "A misunderstanding?" The receptionist ultimately discovered his voice. We," he stammered, his hands trembling slightly. "I just thought I didn't fit in here," Monica concluded with ease. The receptionist's complexion grew even more ashen, and he averted his eyes to the desk, overwhelmed by a sense of shame. The manager prepared to speak once more, yet Monica was already extending her hand toward her phone. With a flick of her finger, she navigated through her contacts and selected a number. The phone rang a single time before it was picked up. "Security," she stated plainly. The impact was instantaneous. The manager's eyes grew wide with fear, and the receptionist let out a shocked gasp. Daniel remained still, watching with an air of anticipation as if he had foreseen this moment. Moments later, 2 security guards in uniform stepped into the lobby, their faces betraying no emotion. "Miss Carter." One of them acknowledged her with a tone of respect. Monica's gaze remained fixed on the manager. "Take these 2 to my office," she commanded. "We have a crucial conversation before us." The manager was clearly sweating now. "Ms. Carter, I can clarify everything." "You will," she replied. "In my office." She pivoted and strode toward the elevator, acutely aware of the heaviness of their gazes, as she left them with no option but to trail behind. This is merely the start. The ascent to Monica's office was steeped in a suffocating quiet. The manager and receptionist stood rigidly beside her, their forms exuding discomfort. Monica, in contrast, maintained her composure, her face a mask of inscrutability. She sensed their anxious looks, their frantic efforts to predict her next action, yet she had already determined the course of events. The door glided open with a gentle chime, unveiling a spacious executive suite. The expansive windows stretched from floor to ceiling, offering a breathtaking view of the city skyline, while each piece of furniture exuded a sleek, modern elegance that clearly spoke of luxury. The manager paused at the entrance, visibly shaken by the weight of his decision to refuse the owner of this grand establishment a room in her own hotel. "Please, take a seat," Monica invited, motioning to the comfortable chairs positioned in front of her desk. The manager complied without hesitation, while the receptionist lingered, settling nervously on the edge of his seat, poised to escape at any moment. With measured grace, Monica eased into her chair, fingers interlaced, as she scrutinized the 2 men in front of her. The heaviness of her authority was palpable, and they were acutely aware of it. "Explain," she instructed, her tone steady yet infused with an unmistakable power. The manager cleared his throat, his grip on the arms of his chair growing firmer. "Ms. Carter, he paused, taking a shaky breath. "I made an error in judgment, a grave mistake. I was completely unaware of your identity, and I allowed my preconceived notions to cloud my judgment." Monica inclined her head just a bit. "Your assumptions?" The man swallowed hard. "I misjudged you. What if I had been a different person?" If I were not the proprietor of this establishment. Her tone stayed unsettlingly calm. The manager was at a loss for words. He lowered his eyes to the ground, a flush of embarrassment coloring his cheeks. The receptionist remained still, clearly holding his breath. Monica allowed the silence to stretch, compelling them to confront the gravity of their choices. She leaned in just a bit. "Tell me something," she said. "What exactly did you think when I walked through that door?" The manager's hands tightened into fists. He paused. "I assumed you were not the type of visitor we usually—" "Not the type of visitor?" she echoed. The atmosphere was heavy with unease. The receptionist finally succumbed, his voice scarcely rising above a whisper. "We were mistaken," he confessed. "Utterly mistaken." Monica exhaled slowly. "You were," she concurred. "What do you believe unfolds from here?" The manager finally locked eyes with her, his complexion an eerie shade of white. His voice faltered. "I don't know." Monica reclined, drumming her nails against the armrest. "I do." Monica allowed the silence to linger, observing the manager squirm beneath the burden of his own errors. The receptionist appeared as though he wished to vanish, his hands quivering slightly in his lap. Neither dared to break the quiet, too fearful of uttering the wrong words. She finally leaned forward, her voice steady. "Tell me, how long have you been working here?" The manager took a deep breath. 8 years, ma'am." Monica nodded, her eyes drifting towards the receptionist. "And you?" 2 years, he replied swiftly, his voice scarcely a murmur. 2 years, she echoed, drumming her fingers on the desk. "And in those 2 years, have you ever turned someone away from a room based on a feeling?" The receptionist's breath caught in her throat. He understood that there was no definitive answer to that question. To acknowledge it would validate all of Monica's suspicions. If he refuted it, she would realize he was being untruthful. His voice faltered. "I wasn't thinking." "That much is clear," Monica replied with a calm demeanor. She redirected her focus to the manager. "And you? 8 years in this field, and you made a choice based solely on assumption. What was the reasoning behind that?" The man's face flushed with embarrassment. "I don't have an excuse." Monica maintained her stare. "That's not what I asked." The manager let out a sharp breath. "I misjudged you," he confessed, his tone strained. "I thought you were out of place here. I gazed at you and concluded, without any substantial justification, that you weren't the type of visitor this establishment accommodates." Monica allowed his words to linger in the atmosphere. There it was, the truth laid bare. She reclined in her chair, breathing out gently. "And now that you are aware of my identity?" The manager's throat moved up and down as he swallowed. "I regret it," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Deeply." "Regret is easy," Monica replied. "Change is more challenging." The receptionist shifted uneasily. "Miss Carter, I promise we will improve. This was a mistake, a huge one." Monica studied him for a moment. "You will do better." "Yes," he said quickly. "Absolutely." She considered them both, then reached into the drawer of her desk. She retrieved 2 envelopes and set them down on the table that lay between them. The men shared anxious looks as the manager cautiously extended his hand, revealing his initial move. His breath hitched in his throat as he perused the solitary sheet of paper within. The receptionist tore open his envelope and gasped in surprise. His hands shook slightly as he absorbed the words laid out distinctly on the page. "Termination. Effective immediately." The manager glanced up, a look of panic crossing his face. "Ms. Carter, I implore you." Monica lifted a hand, interrupting him. "This isn't about me," she asserted with conviction. "This is about every single guest you've ever mistreated. Every individual who was dismissed because you chose, without justification, that they were unworthy." The manager's lips parted, yet silence prevailed. Monica stood, adjusting the front of her blazer with a practiced grace. "You do not embody the values of this hotel," and you never will." The receptionist appeared to want to argue, yet he recognized the determination in her gaze. There was no swaying her decision. Monica let out a breath, her gaze drifting to the door. "Security will escort you out." The two men sat motionless, shock evident on their faces. They entered the office with a yearning for absolution. Instead, they found themselves facing repercussions they never anticipated. As security stepped into the office, the heavy burden of reality descended upon the manager and receptionist. Their expressions drained of color as the weight of the irreversible situation settled in. The manager parted his lips, likely to plead, but swiftly closed them again, realizing that no words could reverse his deeds. The receptionist's hands trembled as he rose, his gaze flickering toward Monica, desperately seeking a hint of compassion. There was nothing. Monica averted her gaze from them, her focus shifting to the expansive window that loomed behind her desk. The panorama of the city unfolded endlessly, with the streets teeming with vibrant activity beneath. The heavy silence in the room was sharply interrupted, yet the sound of security escorting the men out barely registered in her mind. She had encountered individuals like them previously, those who formed opinions in an instant, claiming authority they never genuinely possessed. With the door softly closing behind her, she inhaled deeply. This extended beyond their concerns. It was a system that permitted such discrimination to persist without consequence. It was about ensuring that no one else would ever experience the same humiliation she had endured that night. The phone vibrated softly against the surface of the desk. With a gentle motion, she extended her hand, her fingertips gliding over the smooth, cool surface before she grasped it firmly. A notification from James, her assistant, appeared on the screen. "A media request is arriving." Word spread about the events that transpired. Monica released a slow breath. Naturally, they had. News spread quickly, particularly when those in authority committed serious blunders. She was aware that the news would ripple through the online world before the day turned to night. Some might feel a deep sense of indignation for her. Some might contend that her approach was overly severe. Yet she remained indifferent to the views of the masses. She composed a reply, crafted a declaration. James responded with remarkable speed. "I'm in the process of putting one together. Would you like to give your approval before we proceed with the release?" Monica placed her phone on the table. Her thoughts were already churning, contemplating the words that must be expressed. She refused to center this around her own experiences. This was about something more significant. A sudden knock at the door interrupted her reverie. James glanced within, his face a mask of mystery. "A visitor has arrived," he stated with caution. Monica raised an eyebrow. At that moment he gave a nod. "States that it holds significance." With a soft sigh, she rose to her feet, adjusting her blazer with a practiced grace. "Allow them entry." The door creaked open, revealing an older man who entered the room with a measured pace. His salt and pepper hair was meticulously styled, his suit crafted with impeccable precision. He had an air of familiarity, yet she struggled to recall the source of her recognition. "Ms. Carter," he said with a polished demeanor, offering his hand. "My name is Richard Lawson, and I am the proprietor of the Lawson Hotel Group." Understanding began to unfold within her. Lawson Hotels stood as one of the premier luxury chains in the nation, celebrated for its exceptional service and dedication to inclusivity. She grasped his hand with conviction. "Mr. Lawson, this comes as a surprise to me." He gave a faint smile. "I understand you may not have anticipated this, but after learning about the events that unfolded here tonight, I felt it was necessary to come in person." Monica observed him intently. What could be the reason for that? Lawson's smile dimmed a bit. "What you did was not merely daring. It was essential." She held her tongue, poised for him to elaborate. "After years of dedication, I have established a company that values the importance of treating each guest with the utmost dignity and respect," he stated. "Observing a woman in your role take such a decisive stand is precisely the type of guidance this field requires." Monica folded her arms across her chest. "What precisely are you implying, Mr. Lawson? He laughed softly, clearly taken aback by her straightforwardness. I am expressing, Ms. Carter, my desire for you to oversee my entire East Coast division. The proposal lingered, thick with potential. Monica stood motionless, taking in Richard Lawson's words. The gravity of his proposal lingered in her heart, not as a burden, but as a sense of understanding. He perceived her not just as an individual who had simply protected herself, but as a visionary poised to transform an entire industry. She breathed out slowly, selecting her words with precision. That is a kind proposal, Mr. Lawson. But I must ask, why me? Lawson interlaced his fingers behind his back. Your resolve is unwavering. Your decision to confront the injustice, rather than turning a blind eye, speaks volumes about your character, especially when it would have been simpler to just walk away. I aspire to have that type of leadership guiding my company. Monica observed him intently. His expression conveyed genuine emotion, his stance assured yet welcoming. He was not merely extending an opportunity to her. He was sharing a vision with her, placing his trust in her understanding. And what would my role be? She inquired. Lawson beamed with delight. Senior Vice President overseeing operations for the entire East Coast region. Your role would involve managing all the hotels within the region. Recruitment, development, guidelines. All matters would be channeled through you. When a challenge arises, you address it head-on. When transformation is required, you take the initiative to bring it to fruition. It was an incredible chance. The ability to bring about genuine transformation, not limited to a single hotel, but spanning an entire division. However, Monica was not the type to act on a whim. Not with something of this magnitude. After a moment of contemplation, she finally spoke. I will need time to consider. Lawson nodded, clearly anticipating that outcome. Certainly, however, I must express this. Monica, you are the perfect fit for this role. If you choose to accept, I will ensure you receive all the support necessary. She grasped his hand once more, a subtle smile playing on her lips. Thank you for that, Mr. Lawson. Once he departed, Monica found herself at her desk, gazing out at the twinkling city lights beyond. Only a few days prior, she had faced deep humiliation, regarded as an outsider in a space where she was entitled to exist. At this moment, she held the power to redefine the industry that had let her down. Once more, her phone vibrated with a notification. Yet another note from James. The story is gaining traction among news outlets. Social media is booming. Many are referring to it as the pinnacle of assertiveness. Monica wore a sly grin. She couldn't help but notice the irony. She crafted a reply. Excellent. Allow it to unfold. By morning, the entire world would be aware of the events that unfolded in that hotel lobby. And soon, they would witness the true essence of transformation.